I'm here at OSCON talking to Derek Collison, CTO of Application Platform Division. I am going to ask him a few questions about CloudFoundry and how they are doing it. Can you give me a brief overview of what CloudFoundry is and how it fits into the PaaS model?
Sure. CloudFoundry is VMware's open source, open PaaS platform, meaning that what you care about is application and services, not necessarily VMs and infrastructure and memory and disk. You build your application, you build your services that you want to bind into your application, and that's what you actually deploy within CloudFoundry.
So you take the application, drop into CloudFoundry, and everything happens automatically. Can you sort of give me some background on what is happening in the underneath, like how different load balancers and stuff like that are firing up, and like ensuring that the application can scale without any problem?
One of the core components of the system are routers, and they're distributed real-time state routers that understand where your application actually is running at any given point in time. And your application can run in a host of different VMs under the control of what we call the DEA, or the Droplet Execution Agent. And once the Droplet Execution Agent actually gets your app and actually runs it for you, it actually sends a message out saying that you can actually have a registration event that the routers respond to that says if anyone's looking for your app, let's say your foo app, you can find it on this host and this port.
So I understand that with CloudFoundry you can use any language framework underneath. Does it mean that if I have a particular language in mind, I can just plug it into the CloudFoundry framework and have a pass for that particular language? Can you give me some overview on how that works?
Sure. I mean, that is the design principle. So, for example, today, CloudFoundry understands the concept of an app being decomposed into a runtime, a potential framework, and then an app server. The runtime is actually what you care about in terms of the DEA pool needs to understand the runtime. Let's say Java for a Spring app, or Ruby for Ruby on Rails, to actually run your application. But we have lots of pull requests coming in from the open source community that are actually adding different runtimes and frameworks and things like that. So we have Scala and Lift that we actually run on the Java runtime, but is framework aware, and someone just supported and submitted a Erlang pull request for Moki web apps.
So I can also do something like a Python or PHP framework, plug it in over there and get it going?
Yes, and we actually have two external partners that are very interested in both of those today.
Okay. So, and another question I have in mind is like, I know the PaaS comes in 3 different flavors. So one is like a pure hosted model, and the other one is a federated model which CloudFoundry is taking. And then there is a container kind of a model which some of the companies are taking. So can you sort of compare and contrast 3 different models and tell me why CloudFoundry chose a more federated approach than the other 2 models?
Sure. Well, the container model aside for right now, the general premise of CloudFoundry was to be multiple language, multiple framework, multiple services, multiple clouds, and open source, meaning that it supports both hybrid, private, and public clouds. And what I mean by that is that before CloudFoundry actually came out, anytime you saw something that you really liked that felt like a PaaS, when you're dealing with your application and services, you're usually dealing with it in a hosted form. And a lot of enterprises say, that's great, but we need to bring it behind the firewall. And the answer was always no. And CloudFoundry wanted to make sure that answer was yes. And so the reason that CloudFoundry is built and designed the way it is so it can support both those models, and even more importantly, the hybrid model, where you actually have some apps that are running internally and some can actually be deployed externally. With the containers, there's lots of different container models, and several people out there will actually bind the concept of the PaaS, where your application and services might be running, to the concept of a VM. And CloudFoundry took a slightly different approach. CloudFoundry has 2 pieces in its core, the kernel and the orchestrator. They are both layered on top of an IaaS layer. So CloudFoundry proper doesn't understand the concept of virtual machines. It understands the concept of resources that DEAs are allowed to utilize to run your application. But within those, then it's interesting to say, well, how can you actually provision a DEA and do different types of characteristics around container models that match up with what an enterprise wants? And so CloudFoundry today has the DEAs that can run in single tenant or multi-tenant mode. Single tenant means can only run one app at one time. Within that concept, then you can actually put VM or full hypervisor level of security around the container that's running the app and the app server and the framework. We also run multi-tenant though as well, And within multi-tenant mode, we actually utilize Unix-based file permissioning and user IDs, and we'll probably be adding Linux containers here in the near future.
Okay. So one of the advantages people quote for container model is the ability to run legacy applications. More than I really don't like the idea of running legacy applications on the cloud, but there might be some enterprises who might have some of the legacy applications there. Can those applications interoperate with the applications running on CloudFoundry? Do you have any hooks for that?
Yes, we do, and we don't have anything concrete, but we do have the concept that we don't want people who actually utilize CloudFoundry and utilize an application-based PaaS to have to step a very, very large step downwards to hit the IaaS layer if they actually have to use that. And so what we want to make sure is that if you actually want to do that, it's as easy as binding services to your apps. So you can think of the concept of, hey, bind a utility VM to my app. And there's layer 4 connectivity network-wise both ways, such that the app can find the utility VM, and the utility VM can find all the services that are bound to your app. And the example I would give there is currently we don't have the concept of a search service, although we might be adding one in the very near future. But if you wanted to write your own search service, you could do that possibly using just layer 4 connectivity to utility VM, where the app could then understand to go to that utility VM to actually extract the search data. And the utility VM itself could find your services, let's say a MySQL database, to extract the documents out and actually do the indexing for them.
Some of the pundits and analysts are dismissing PaaS as not taking off like how the industry expected. But in my opinion, we are still in the early adoption phase of the cloud, and it will take at least a year or two before PaaS takes off. So what is your take on that, and do you expect PaaS to be taking off in the near future?
I definitely understand where they're coming from, but I will tell you that the reaction that we've seen to CloudFoundry has overwhelmed all of us. We've had internal estimates for a single year that were eclipsed within 3 days. And we've blown out our 3-year targets in less than 60 days. And so the interest is definitely there. Developers want to deal with application services. They don't necessarily want to deal with, give me this many VMs running this version of Windows or Linux and with this patch set, and I need these services and these services. They say, I've got an application, it's a Spring app, it uses a MySQL database, just let me do my work. So I believe that it's really going to gain traction. I think the analysts are reacting to the official supported things that are out there, especially posted, that haven't gained a lot of traction. But from VMware side, we've seen a tremendous amount of interest in CloudFoundry.
Do you see any traction on the enterprise side?
Tons, tons. We do things that frustrate me in terms of people say, can I buy it today? And CloudFoundry is not ready yet, although it's getting there very quickly. But we've already had lots and lots of Fortune 100 customers come to us and say, we want this today.
Okay. One of the biggest attraction for me with the CloudFoundry is the open source nature. So, but some people are saying that the CloudFoundry.com, the code inside CloudFoundry.com is not the same as the code in CloudFoundry.org. So is it the same, and what is your take on that?
Yep, it's exactly the same.
Okay.
So what we have right now is we have a step repo that we actually do testing and things on, and that goes into the public repo. But all the bits that are actually running in CloudFoundry.com, the service, are actually the open source bits that you can actually download today. Okay. Now, for example, with the Erlang pull request, when we accepted that into the open source bits, we did make the choice that we can configure to not enable that right now in CloudFoundry.com. So we have 2 different bars there. So there's a bar to get into the open source bits, and then there's a bar to actually have a language framework or a service turned on in CF.com. That's mostly around our ability to support it and support our customers. But no, they are the exact same thing, and we are committed, tried and true to the open source.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you for your time, and it was nice talking to you.
Thank you.